The 23rd of April, 1945. With Soviet forces only several kilometers from Adolf Hitler's bunker near the Reich Chancellery, the situation in Berlin is becoming increasingly desperate. Josef Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, delivers a broadcast urging Germans to remain loyal to the Führer and to fight until the last man. He depicts the Allies as satanic and Bolshevistic enemies and insists that the German people must stand firm and not surrender. Hitler continues to hold military briefings with his close associates, but his mental and physical state is deteriorating. In the next several days, he learns that his ally, Benito Mussolini, the fascist leader of Italy, has been captured and executed by Italian partisans, and that Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, has betrayed him by trying to negotiate a surrender with the Allies. Some of Hitler's close associates and staff begin to make preparations to evacuate from the Führerbunker or go into hiding to avoid the advancing Soviet forces. One of the few people who chooses to stay with the Führer until the very end is a woman who has waited 15 long years to become the wife of the deadliest dictator in human history. Her name is Eva Braun. Eva Anna Paula Braun was born on the 6th of February 1912 in Munich, then part of the German Empire. She had an older sister named Ilse and a younger sister named Margareta, nicknamed Gretel. Their father, Friedrich Braun, was a schoolteacher and a strict disciplinarian. He closely monitored his daughter's free time, checked their mail, and insisted they be in bed by 10 p.m. at the latest. Growing up, Eva was often described as disobedient and stubborn, and she had average grades in school. Her dream was to become a film actress and make it to Hollywood. However, after completing her secondary school education, Eva Braun switched several jobs until she found work that would forever change her life. Because she loved photography, she applied and got accepted for an apprentice position at a photographic shop. By the time Braun started there in the summer of 1929, she had no idea that her new boss, Heinrich Hoffmann, was the personal photographer and close friend of Adolf Hitler. On the 7th of October 1929, a man in his 40s appeared at the shop after closing hours, claiming he wanted to pick out some photos that had been taken recently. That day, 17-year-old Eva stayed late to finish some administrative tasks. Hoffmann referred to the customer as Mr. Wolf, who could not take his eyes off the young Eva. After the man left, Hoffmann asked Braun if she guessed who Mr. Wolf was, and if she recognized him from the photographs, but she shook her head. Surprised, Hoffmann said, "It was Hitler, our Adolf Hitler." In the following months, Hitler would invite Eva Braun occasionally to dinner, the movies, or the opera. By 1930, Hitler had Martin Bormann, who would later become the head of the Nazi Party Chancellery and his private secretary, investigate the Braun family's Aryan lineage to avoid any potential scandal or contradiction to the Nazi racial laws and propaganda. According to Heinrich Hoffmann's recollections, Hitler viewed Eva Braun merely as an attractive young woman. Despite her seemingly frivolous and light-hearted demeanor, or perhaps because of it, he found the relaxation and comfort he sought in her company. However, in his voice, looks, or gestures, he never displayed any sign of deeper affection or interest towards her. By the time Hitler met Braun, he was already romantically involved with his niece, Geli Raubal, who was 19 years younger than him. Hitler was obsessively controlling and possessive of Geli, imposing strict limitations on her social interactions and personal freedom. Geli complained that, in addition to her uncle's enormous jealousy, she was subjected to sexual perversions for Hitler's satisfaction. On the 18th of September 1931, Geli Raubal committed suicide by shooting herself with her uncle's pistol. Geli's death remained one of the darkest points in Hitler's personal life, and he would later tell friends that Geli had been the only woman he had ever loved, and that he wanted to marry her. Hitler felt devastated and depressed, and the tragic event deeply affected his personal relationships. In August 1932, Eva Braun also tried to commit suicide by shooting herself in the chest in order to get Hitler's attention. After a quick recovery, Hitler became more committed to her, and by the end of 1932, they had become lovers. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. After becoming Chancellor, Hitler focused on consolidating his power and implementing his agenda. He eliminated political opposition, started opening concentration camps, and established a totalitarian regime. His priorities included reviving the economy, rearming Germany, and expanding its territory through aggressive foreign policies. Moreover, he managed extensive responsibilities within the Nazi Party and government, and running the Third Reich meant he paid little attention to Eva Braun. Feeling neglected, in May 1935 she tried to commit suicide for a second time by taking an overdose of sleeping pills. After her second suicide attempt, Hitler finally started taking Eva Braun seriously. In August 1935, he provided Braun and her sister with a 3-bedroom apartment in Munich, and the next year, the sisters were given a villa in Bogenhausen, one of Munich's most prestigious neighborhoods. Moreover, Braun also had her own apartment at the new Reich Chancellery in Berlin, completed to a design by Albert Speer, Hitler's chief architect. While Eva Braun lived in luxury and enjoyed the benefits of the Nazis being in power, some German citizens, especially Jews, faced severe persecution. The Nuremberg laws of 1935 stripped Jews of their citizenship and prohibited them from marrying or having sexual relations with non-Jews. Economic and social life became increasingly restricted, leading many Jews to seek refuge abroad. By the time Hitler was appointed Chancellor, there were approximately 523,000 Jews living in Germany. However, from 1933 to 1939, approximately 282,000 Jews fled the country, seeking safety in places like the United States, Palestine, and the United Kingdom. Those who stayed were removed from the economic life of Germany by transferring Jewish-owned businesses, properties and assets to Aryan or non-Jewish ownership. Jews were forced to sell their businesses and properties, often at a fraction of their actual value. Once they were economically marginalized, Jews were systematically deported to concentration and extermination camps, where they were killed. Eva Braun's relationship with Adolf Hitler was kept hidden from the public eye. The rare occasions when they were seen together were at their secluded alpine retreat, the Berghof, where she was present during gatherings with his inner circle. At these events, Braun would wear her elegant Italian high heels and diamond jewelry, always taking her seat to Hitler's left during dinners. Guests were treated to individual servings of butter, fresh salad, various sausages, white bread, roast pork, braised beef, omelets, apple strudel, and imported oranges. The beverages included soda, fruit juice, vermouth, cognac, and Braun's favorite, champagne, which he enjoyed daily. This opulence was in stark contrast to the grim reality faced by prisoners in Nazi concentration camps, in which the prisoners starved. Despite living in such luxury, Braun's cousin described Eva as the unhappiest woman I ever met. Although she was Hitler's long-term companion, Eva Braun often felt neglected and isolated. Hitler believed that he was sexually attractive to women and wished to exploit this for political gain by remaining single, as he felt marriage would decrease his appeal. By remaining unmarried, Hitler aimed to maintain an aura of mystique and make himself appear more accessible and relatable to the women of Germany, thereby fostering a personal connection and loyalty among them, which he believed would strengthen their support for his regime. Despite a substantial age difference, Braun and Hitler enjoyed a normal sex life. Braun's friends and relatives recalled her giggling over a 1938 photograph of Neville Chamberlain, sitting on a sofa in Hitler's Munich flat with the remark, "If only he knew what goings-on that sofa has seen." Nevertheless, Braun's political influence on Hitler was minimal, and she was never allowed to stay in the room when business or political conversations took place. Instead, she was sent out of the room when cabinet ministers or other dignitaries were present. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Eva Braun spent most of the war at Berghof, where she engaged in activities like swimming and skiing. While Hitler was busy invading countries and orchestrating the mass murder of millions of Jews, Eva remained alone in the Alps. She often felt bored, indulged in champagne, changed her outfits up to 7 times a day, and waited for phone calls from the Führer. The propagandistically significant position of First Lady was taken on by Magda Goebbels, the wife of the propaganda minister Josef Goebbels, and Emmy Goering, the wife of Hermann Goering, the commander-in-chief of the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe. It was mainly Emmy Goering who snubbed and openly despised Eva Braun, for which she was no longer invited to the Berghof. In 1943, after Germany switched to a total war economy, everyday life for German citizens became increasingly challenging. Food shortages were common, and rationing was strictly enforced. Essentials like meat, dairy, and bread were limited, forcing families to rely on substitute products. The war effort consumed most of the nation's resources, leaving little for civilian use. By this time, Eva Braun remained largely uninterested in politics and was often unaware of the events happening in Germany and around the world. However, she did take notice when the war economy resulted in a potential ban on women's cosmetics and luxuries. Outraged, Braun confronted Hitler about the ban. In response, Hitler instructed Albert Speer, at the time the armaments minister, to halt the production of these items, rather than imposing a complete ban, which meant that these goods would no longer be manufactured, but existing stocks could still be sold and used. Speer later remarked, "Eva Braun will prove a great disappointment to historians." Braun was aware of her unique position and the influence she had due to her relationship with the most powerful man in Europe. She took advantage of this access to benefit herself financially. She captured numerous photographs and films of Hitler and his inner circle, selling them to her former employer, Heinrich Hoffmann, for extremely high prices. In early April 1945, Eva Braun traveled from Munich to join Hitler in his final stronghold, the underground bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery in Berlin. The Hitler she saw in the bunker was a different man than the one she met for the first time at Hoffmann's studio in Munich in October 1929. As the Russians advanced and Berlin fell into chaos, Hitler was a trembling wreck, desperately consuming cake to stay calm. His mental health had been deteriorating rapidly, exacerbated by the immense pressure and imminent defeat. Plagued by paranoia, anxiety, and fits of rage, his once steadfast composure had crumbled, leaving him a shadow of his former self. When it was suggested that Eva should go into hiding after the war, Braun said, "Do you think I would let him die alone? I will stay with him up until his last moment." Eva Braun fulfilled her promise, and remained completely serene and unwaveringly loyal until the very end. On the night of the 28th to 29th of April, just after midnight, Hitler and Braun finally got married, in a small civil ceremony with Josef Goebbels and Martin Bormann as witnesses. When Braun married Hitler, her legal name became Eva Hitler. As she signed the marriage certificate, she initially wrote the letter B for her surname, then crossed it out and replaced it with Hitler. Afterwards, on the 29th of April, at 4 a.m., Hitler signed his last will, in which he also wrote, "As I did not consider that I could take responsibility during the years of struggle of contracting a marriage, I have now decided, before the closing of my earthly career, to take as my wife that girl who, after many years of faithful friendship, entered of her own free will the practically besieged town in order to share her destiny with me. At her own desire, she goes as my wife with me into death. It will compensate us for what we both lost through my work in the service of my people. I, myself, and my wife, in order to escape the disgrace of deposition or capitulation, choose death. It is our wish to be burnt immediately on the spot, where I have carried out the greatest part of my daily work in the course of 12 years' service to my people." Hitler's service to his people, however, ended up with a death of between 6.6 and 8.8 million Germans, who lost their lives during the Second World War. The following day, on the 30th of April, 1945, Eva Braun had her last lunch with Hitler, which consisted of spaghetti with tomato sauce. After saying their farewells to staff and members of the inner circle, the couple locked themselves into a private room. Later that afternoon, several people reported hearing a loud gunshot. When Hitler's attendants entered the room, they discovered that the Führer had shot himself in the right temple with his pistol. Eva Braun, who paid attention to her appearance until the last minute she was alive, committed suicide by biting into a cyanide capsule. As per Hitler's instructions, the corpses were carried up the stairs and through the bunker's emergency exit to the garden behind the Reich Chancellery, where they were burned while the Red Army was only a few hundred meters away, bombing the area. Eva Braun was 33, and Adolf Hitler was 56 years old. The German public was unaware of Eva Braun's relationship with Hitler until after their deaths. Hitler once said on the topic of marriage, "A highly intelligent man should take a primitive woman. Imagine if on top of everything else, I had a woman who interfered with my work." Eva Braun's great virtue in Hitler's eyes was her unquestioning loyalty and submissiveness. In recognition of this, he legally married her, finally making her Frau Eva Hitler. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.